Real talk about real life. Spiritual maturity. Faith. Leadership. Growth. Welcome to Life Beyond Sunday podcast.
Hello, guys. Good morning. See, I'm trying to do a legit intro, like a welcome back, and you're making me laugh. So
I can't.
I was just singing a song, and Shayla asked if it was sung by the artist Fat Bunny instead of Bad Bunny, which I love her pop culture knowledge.
It's really
Fat
fantastic.
Bunny. Could you imagine just like that's the name you pick, Fat Bunny?
Hey.
It's okay.
Jelly roll.
I mean, true.
Biggie Smalls. Okay, fair enough. Point
Jelly
taken.
roll said he regrets his face tattoos.
I would regret face tattoos as well.
The fact that you know that, where'd you see that?
On like my news feed. That's the only, it was a headline.
That's where she gets her pop culture from. So like random
I didn't read the
headlines.
article. It just said Jelly Roll regrets the majority of his tattoos.
Oh
Anyway,
gosh. Anyways, Hi guys. All right. So we talked a little bit about marriage, right? And today we're gonna address our single and dating people out there.
Nice.
Okay. And we're gonna talk a little bit about what are some things that you can do while you're single, while you're waiting, and things that you can do while you're dating to find out like is this how we should we be
Dating
getting
while
married?
you're waiting.
Dating while you're waiting. Okay, I like it. So first we're going to start with something a little bit fun. If you were single today.
Oh, golly.
Wow.
I wouldn't want to.
Real
I wouldn't want to
No,
be
I
single
wouldn't wanna be.
today.
Oh, that's
and
bad.
you wanted
We
to
need to
find
edit that
a
out.
relationship. And you wanted to find a relationship. What would you do? So if you were
Volunteer
single
at She
today-
Conference,
Volunteer at She
It's not a conference.
whatever it is.
gathering.
She Gathering.
He'd volunteer for the whole conference. He'd be here the whole week. Like who's
All week.
working?
Who's showing up? Who's serving? Who's single? Who doesn't have a ring on their finger?
I mean, like this is probably supposed to be a funny question, but I mean, I think seriously, I would be, because depends on the type of person you want, right? Like,
Right.
so I'm going to be showing up at, I would want a biblical, like a man that's like seeking God. And I know I'm making this more serious, but I would seriously be showing up at church, serving, going to the co-ed groups, like doing everything I could to be around guys that are pursuing God.
I would go on Love is Blind.
Oh, dear Lord.
Have you seen the show?
No.
Okay, listen.
Do you know, there was one of the girls on staff, Tanya, I'm just going to call you out.
Thanks, Tanya.
She goes, Sheila, some of the girls were watching the show Love is Blind, and I went to watch it, and she goes, I thought they were blind people until I watched the show. Okay, sorry.
Okay, but let me explain the concept. Okay, it's a pod, so you don't see each other. So you ask all these like you don't see each other, and you're dating, and you're like speed dating, right?
I probably need to see him too.
I would do that. You'd have to see them, but then you might make the wrong decision.
Listen, my list of who I wanted included physical attributes.
Did you ask for a bald guy?
Absolutely.
Bald is beautiful.
All right, so no Love is Blind.
No.
I just
I
feel
wouldn't-
like people get married on that show, and they last for a long time. I'm a believer.
They last for, how long has this show been on for?
5 years.
5 years.
It's
This
more than a lot of
this
marriages where they see each
It
other.
was on my news feed. This last one,
Yeah,
only one couple even
but they're still married.
out of how many?
So let's be honest. The major divorce years are 2 and 7 on the front end.
Right. So we got 2 more years to see if the 5-year couples are making it, but they made the 2 years.
This is a horrible
This is a horrible. I think that you're.
No proponent of Love is Blind.
No.
All right. So guys, don't go on Love is Blind, but if you do get on, let me know. And I'm happily married, by the way. I feel like I can just say that. It's just so fun. But I just I'm curious to see how the show works. Go to church and serve. How's that? Is that better? Okay.
That's
All
way
right.
better.
Now let's go into the nitty gritty of it. Okay. So some people are single and they're looking for a relationship, and other people are single and they're completely happy with where they are. How do you deal with societal pressures? Because I think, and I think we know this, right? You're not dating and it's like, oh, when are you just going to start dating? Like,
I don't think society is even pressuring people to get married.
I don't think they are
No.
at all.
I think if
they're
anything, they'd be like, you can do this on your own.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So how do you deal with so you don't think people who are single feel pressured to get married? That kind of stumps my
I think
question.
everybody.
Well, I
That's
mean,
true.
I think there's family pressure,
Right.
and I mean, when grandma goes, so when are you going to get married? I would go, well, when are you going to die? Like that's like it's the same kind of question to them.
Gosh, what the?
Because it's not a very kind question.
No.
Right.
So like that's not a great question to be asking people,
Yeah.
especially if they're enjoying
Right.
being single. A lot of
Yeah.
people they don't even want the pressure of relationships.
Right.
So why are we pressuring them into relationships?
Yeah.
And
Completely agree.
if you are single, don't ask your grandmother when she's dying.
No.
But
grandma, don't ask them when they're
But
getting
grandma
married.
also don't ask when
when
they're
they're
start getting married. Exactly. So what would you say to somebody who is single but they do want a relationship? How do you find joy in where you are at the moment? And how do you find peace in that? And what would you say to somebody like that? Because I think there are people who are single and they're like, especially if, and let me pose the question this way, especially if you're at a phase in your life, how sometimes when we're younger, you're like, well, I'm going to get married at X age and I'm going to have kids. And those seasons have passed and you're not where you thought you were. And how do you find joy in that season? And how do you live out that season gracefully and well?
I think I first want to acknowledge that's really hard.
Yeah.
No matter what, when there's a hope that you have and that hope is deferred, right? Proverbs said it makes our heart sick. There's things that are really difficult in those seasons. And it's almost in Psalms, David is having a really tough time and he basically commands himself no, I will praise you, my Savior and my Lord. And it's kind of how I look at that part. There's things in us that are discouraged, that are downcast, that are frustrating, that are hard. But there are things that we have to do in spite of the difficulty, in spite of what we don't have. And I think a lot of that stuff is just constantly developing yourself to become the right person, right? To become somebody that is going to be a healthy, you're going to bring your healthiest self into a relationship. And I think a lot of times when we are in those modes where it's I want something and I desire something that I don't have, a lot of times we make bad decisions. I think because we're more concerned about our desire and that somebody coming in to meet that desire than we are the right person to connect our life with. I don't know that I answered the question, but I think okay.
Do you agree? Do you remember?
I think we're terrible people to answer this question because we got married at 21. I mean, I'm just being honest.
But the advice that we would give someone,
the advice I would give to somebody that's struggling with that is love the season you're in.
Yeah.
Because if you're always longing for the next season, then you won't learn in this season and grow in this season what you need to gain out of it so you're actually ready for the next season.
I call those people destination addicts because it's always well, when I get here, then I'll be fulfilled. When then you get married, it's well, when I have kids, then I'll be, and it's, or when I get to this certain point, then, and it's always embrace the season you're in and just love it and maximize it because you're never going to get this back. Because when you're married, you're going to be oh man, those days when I could just do whatever, when you have kids, then it's oh man, all my freedom is gone. Yeah. You enjoy the season you're in as much as possible. Okay.
What would you say to somebody who they think I don't know if you guys have ever heard this, but somebody's been single and they're waiting for the right person and people are oh, well, they're just being too picky. They're being really picky. Do you think there's such
Sometimes they are.
Okay, so that's what I was going to ask. How do you decide? How do you know? Maybe I'm being a little too picky because sometimes I agree. There's no perfect person, right? How do you know if they're being too picky or if they're actually man, there's some non-negotiables here that I'm not.
I think a lot of the times the people that are super picky like that, they're picky about the other person, but they're not living out those same desires they have in that other person in their own life. At least from what I've seen, there are some there are some exceptions. I remember there was this girl in our church. Her name was Jessica, and Jessica was very intent. She was waiting, and she waited a long time, but eventually she found the right guy. She got married, like living her best life, and she waited, gosh, almost until close to 40 for that. But
she had some values that she lived by.
She had some values that she lived by, and she's just like, I'm not going to compromise on these values, and I'm going to wait until somebody meets those values. And she just embraced the season. That didn't mean it wasn't frustrating for her at times, but eventually that came about. And I think that a lot of times people are so like, I just want to be married, and what'll happen is you'll get married and you'll just be married because you compromised on those values that you desired. And I think the compromise a lot of times is you're not living them out. So why is God going to give you somebody that embraces those when you don't embrace them yourself?
Do you agree with that?
I do, 100%. I think people, and maybe this is where your love is blind comment came in, right? Like, because I do think there are things just like, I want this, I want tall, dark, and handsome, you know? And there's somebody over here that has all the other things, but they're not tall, dark, and handsome. You know, like, could you just get to know that person and maybe there would be, you know, some attraction there because they have all the values. They value all the same things. They're, you know, but they don't look like the person you thought they would look like. I mean, looks are important because you do have to be attracted to that person, right? Like that's a big piece in the physical chemistry of things and all, you know, all of that. But maybe there are some things that could be endearing to your heart when you get to know somebody that attraction begins to shift and you begin to see them differently.
Yeah.
You know?
Yeah, I think, not to go back to Love is Blind, but I think that was the point of like, I think a lot of people, they create this thing and sometimes they look at somebody, and I do think chemistry is important.
Yeah.
And sometimes what you might find attractive might not be what I find attractive.
Right.
That doesn't matter as long as they're attractive to me. But sometimes I wonder if like we're quick to label, right? We look and we're just like,
without giving them a
without
chance.
getting to know them. Sometimes values align, principles align, and you know.
Well, I would say I think the way that we engage in I think we've got a broken system for that. I think the best way to find the best marriage is through deep friendship.
Yeah, I agree.
So like we jump into dating before we even know that we're compatible as friends.
And when people are friends, they see a different side of that person because that person's not trying to impress them. They don't have like their best look on, their best foot forward.
Real them.
Yeah. So you can observe them and
just like me, I'll eat chicken wings in front of somebody and be like, well, if you can withstand that, then we can be married.
So there was one person that could do that, huh?
Thank you, Mauricio. I love you.
But I think that's the problem. We're looking to date people instead of looking to build relationships. Like we built a deep friendship before we ever went and made it a relationship. And the basis of why I think we have a great, healthy marriage is because we were best friends before we were ever in a relationship. So we already realized, man, we have compatibility. We have the same values. We align on the same things. We have deep conversations. We actually genuinely care about each other. And then we put romance into it.
Yeah.
And
it's even deeper.
It's even deeper and better. A lot of times we're just looking for romance without the relationship. And then we get married and we don't have the relationship. We just had romance, and romance fades. And then what are you stuck with? You're stuck with
somebody you don't know.
Somebody you don't know.
I was actually, there's somebody that does a podcast, which I won't say his name or else I might get some hate, but he does a podcast and he talks about how he went out with his wife. Now they've been married. And he went out and I think he dated her for like 2 months. And he was like, I decided within the first month that I was going to marry her because I went out and I asked questions about how do you want to raise your kids? And what kind of like, what kind of faith, what do you believe in faith? And where do you see yourself, going? And he's like, when our values and principles aligned, then I figured the rest, we could figure everything out. So they got married in like 3 months and, they've been married for, I think 15 years and they have 3 or 4 kids at this point. So, I think that's like very important for you to, that's like the most essential thing, right?
Yes.
So if you were talking to somebody who's, dating, what would you say are 3 to 4 questions or principles or values that you say, like, you have, if you guys don't align on these?
Faith.
Faith is number one.
Yeah.
Because here's what I see happen for a lot of people is they're in this dating relationship and they really like the other person. They're like, we're gonna get married or we're engaged. And a lot of times I'll hear them saying, you know, he's not really into the whole church thing or the whole God thing, but he supports me. I'm like, okay, that's great now. But long term, when you're making decisions on how you're going to raise your kids, how you're going to manage your finances, how you're going to do these things, all of those foundational faith things matter in how you make those bigger decisions. Yeah. And so I think it's a number one, like, question or thing that I would be looking for is somebody that adheres to the same values of faith and is active in their faith the same way or more than I am. Right? Would you agree?
Yeah.
Okay, so faith is one. What would you say are 2 to 3 others?
That are values or elements that they have to have. Like, I've got to see them go through something terrible.
Or at least hear how they've walked through it.
Walk through it. Because we're going to face difficulties and obstacles, and I want to know how you're going to react.
So tell me about a failure that you've had in your life or something difficult that you've walked through and how you navigated that.
Because when difficulty comes, I want to know that we're going to be able to communicate, that we're going to be able to have conversations, or are you going to shut down and run?
Yep. How do you manage your finances?
Yeah.
What kind of debt do you have?
Yeah. What's your credit score? For real.
He's not joking.
Yeah.
I'm not joking. Because here's what that tells me. It tells me you either
You're disciplined.
you do what you say you're going to do, or you are a liar. Because if you have a bad credit score, it tells me that
You've made promises you can't keep.
can't keep. So are you going to keep this promise? Or is this just going to be another broken promise? And these are the things that nobody talks about. They find these things out after they got married when they're like, let's go buy a house. We can't. My credit score is 380.
380? Does it go that low?
I'm just saying,
Yeah.
Past performance is the best indicator of future performance.
So faith, finances, how you handle difficulty.
Yeah, I want to know. We had these. I want to know your sexual history.
Yep. Do you have a pornography addiction?
Do you have issues when it comes to that?
Because if they have issues with that now, like you're gonna have some issues in marriage that you do have to work through. And like if that's been a struggle in the past, not that you can you can't overcome that, but is that still an issue in your life?
So when you're dating, is that something you communicate through, or is that like a red flag? Like, I guess here's my question. Oh, yes, I have a pornography addiction. Is that something?
What are you doing about that?
Okay. So if that's something that's a work in progress.
Well, it's also like, I think if you have a pornography issue and you're single, you need to go deal with that before you ever start dating. Because you're going to be projecting things and expecting things from another person that's not real life.
Yep.
And then you're going to create unrealistic expectations in a future relationship that they're never going to be able to fulfill, which is going to create disconnect and issues. So go deal with your issue.
And honestly, that's not just men that deal with it.
Yeah,
so many women have pornography addictions too. Like this isn't just a one-sided thing.
Yeah. And what would you say are some healthy practices for people who are dating? Like, okay, build a friendship. How about if I want to live a God-centered, dating relationship, what are, a couple healthy habits that I can implement in my relationship?
Discuss boundaries on the front end.
Okay.
And agree to that, because like you're establishing a respect level, and like, will you respect the boundaries that we determine together? And if you break those now, what boundaries will you break later? I think probably, single people don't be don't put yourself in a position that can compromise. So like maybe if you don't have good self-control, maybe not hang out at their house by yourselves. Maybe you keep yourselves in public places if that's a problem. Like you got to determine what are those boundaries that you need to make that will help put you in situations. That's why I say
don't live together.
Definitely don't live together. I mean, you want to talk about divorce rate. People that live together before they get married, their divorce rate is exponential. In fact, they're part of the reason that statistic is so bad.
Yeah. I had that somewhere.
And people think, well, I just need to test drive this, right? Yeah. How am I going to know if I can live with them if I can't do that now? But again, it goes back to the biblical aspect of things, like you're trying to circumvent a process. And here's the problem. What people are doing when we're like dating and moving in with people and then and we're dumping them again, I say it's like this: we're practicing divorce because we're dating and dumping and dating and dumping and dating and dumping. We're just practicing something and putting something in our life where if we would wait for those things to know, like, go through some of those questions and things that go, okay, our values are aligned or whatever. Okay, I can continue in this relationship. Then you're not repeating that cycle over and over and over and over again because you've already set some guidelines of what you're looking for.
And that's why I think it starts as friendship first. If you can discover that in friendship first, you eliminate so many issues. Yeah. And you've already seen values lived out. You've seen the real person, not the fake person. Because let's be honest, it's like going on a job interview. You're putting your best foot forward, and you can fake that for a while.
Yeah.
But in friendship, you see the real people.
Do you think it's bad when people date for too long?
I think that's a failure to launch.
Yeah.
I tell them, if you don't know in a year, like if you don't know at that point, that is not, move on.
Yeah. And what would you say to somebody who's like, well, I know, but I'm not in a financial position to get married, or I'm waiting for this to finish, or I'm waiting for, I want to be more.
There's never You're never ready.
If you're waiting for perfection never comes.
Mm-mm. Same with people that are engaged, have these long engagements. I'm like, don't do that. Yeah. You're just setting yourself up for failure.
Did you guys have a big wedding?
We did.
Okay. Yeah. Like big?
I don't know what big is.
Karen would like go all out.
Oh, our wedding was.
We had a wedding on the beach on Siesta Key. Had a big tent out there. We did our wedding a little bit differently, so it's interesting. We everybody that came to our wedding, we told them to wear black and white, and then I was the only one that wore a color.
Oh, isn't that cute?
Interesting.
What color did you get married in?
It's called periwinkle.
Is that blue?
It's like a purpley blue.
Okay.
Blue. Yeah.
Is that your favorite color?
No.
What is? Since we're going down this,
I like green, blue.
TJ likes black.
TJ likes black.
Love black.
Did you wear black?
I wore
tux.
A black tux with a white shirt, with no bow tie or anything.
Very nice. Do you feel like now sometimes a lot of people are more like obsessed with the idea of the party than the actual marriage? I feel
I think people prepare more for their wedding than they do for their marriage.
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
100%.
And what would you say is like we talked a little bit about like past, right? So, or asking questions like, you guys brought up the pornography example or finances.
I actually brought up sexual history. I didn't bring up pornography.
Sorry.
I did.
It was the example. Yeah. Sexual history, or let's say somebody has a history of promiscuity, or somebody has had financial issues. How do you decipher between, okay, that is part of their past, and now, because people make mistakes, right?
Yeah.
That's part of their past, and now they deserve another chance, or like this is a major red flag.
Even in TJ and I's relationship, like TJ came into the relationship a virgin, and I had I wasn't. And so there was a lot of conversations that we had to have based on those things, because I was coming in with actually a lot of trauma from my sexual history and how that was going to affect our relationship. And we've consistently had to have conversations even after being married about some of the things that I was bringing from my past. And so I think some of it is like healthy communication through it. Now, if there's been like 27, sexual partners and, just a continued repeated, has that person, were they in a relationship that they cheated on that person? Were they like some of those things that are important to know, I think. And if that's been a repetitive thing.
I think part of it is people that are healed from that have no problem having conversations about it. People that are still dealing with it, they don't want to talk about it.
Right,
Yeah.
so that's what I was going to ask.
So-
So you were able to receive that?
Oh, yeah.
Yeah, I mean, we
We were.
Shay-
I was very transparent.
yeah,
about
Shayla.
it.
So I mean, Shayla will tell you this: when we were dating, I came to every date with multiple questions. Like I'd been building up questions for a year of, like, here are things that I want to know about my future partner. I mean, I was locked and loaded, so we had no problem creating conversation, like, because I had questions and I wanted to know everything about her. Like I wanted to know if I'm going to put a ring on her finger and we're to spend the rest of our life together. I want to know everything about you. Past, present, future dreams.
And you knew within the first year that you wanted to marry her?
When we started dating in August, September, we were engaged in November,
married
in May.
So quick. All right.
But we had been friends since we were 11.
Yeah. We covered that. If you guys didn't hear about that, that was in like episode 1 or 2. Go back and listen. All right. So any last words of advice, or should I ask my final question about somebody who's single or dating, or any last words? No, we got it all in.
Yeah.
Okay. TJ, you look like you're okay.
I'm waiting for the last question.
If you were single and best pickup line.
Oh, I'm horrible at this.
Yeah.
Are you from Tennessee? Because you're the only 10 I see. Would anybody go for that one? No? Are you
Something
tired?
about
You've
an
been running
angel
through my
falling
mind?
from heaven.
Oh, you must. What is it like?
You guys.
Oh, are you something about? Are you hurt? Because you're an angel that must have fell from heaven. I don't even know what it is. Here would be my pickup.
You two are married.
Here would be my pickup line. Hey, my name's TJ. What's yours?
And then after that,
And then after that, I'd be like, I just
what are
have a
your
conversation.
deepest? What was the trauma you handled, and how did you handle it? That'd be TJ's first. He'd be like,
Do you want to come to church with me?
"Do you want to come to church with me?"
Yeah,
How do you praise
serve
God?
on my
Hands
team?
up or receive?
yeah.
All right.
Are you number one or are you touchdown?
Yeah.
Oh, geez.
All right, guys. Thank you guys for covering this topic, and we will see you all next week. Thank you.
Hey guys, thank you so much for tuning in for another episode of Life Beyond Sunday. We loved hanging out with you guys. If you wouldn't mind liking, subscribing, commenting, we would love to hear from you. And we can't wait to see you next week.